The lights are on, and we've got a lot to talk about, including some new contracts, the last few games, and other stuff. Yeah, we'll talk about all this on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi everyone, welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade. I'm currently the PA announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and we're live from Acrisure Arena, where the lights are on. I was originally going to record here on Friday, but as some of you may have heard, the power went out here, so we're pushing it back a couple days, and podcasts are still a little bit of a sporadic schedule right now since I'm still in the middle of a big move. So just bear with us, trying to get episodes out as quickly as possible, trying to get as many episodes out. I mean, the goal is always Monday through Friday, but because, power's been going out and because I'm in the middle of moving, it's a little difficult right now. So just want to let you all know what's going on there. All right, in the meantime, we got to talk about the last two contracts that just took place and what that all means. And we're going to start with the big one. I already mentioned this on a previous podcast, but Trevor Zegras getting signed to a big contract with the Anaheim Ducks. I mentioned this, and this one kind of came out of nowhere, but at the same time, we knew this was coming at some point, where Zegras signed a 3-year, $17.25 million deal. That's 5.75 AAV for the next 3 seasons, which is kind of a technically team-friendly deal because we know how much Trevor can be worth and we know how much that he could get. Some were saying that he can get upwards of 8 to 9 million. There was the rumor, I mentioned this, I don't know if it's true, that maybe the team was going for 4 million. I still don't know if I buy that or not, but 5.7 is still a very team-friendly deal and one that is going to help the Ducks in the long run, particularly because the cap is supposed to go up quite a bit over the next few seasons. In fact, I'm trying to look up the cap hit right now. It's probably going to be closer to 92 or up. There was the rumor that it could go up to 88 million by next season, which is a big increase, and then up to 92. Either way, the cap is going to jump by approximately 10 million. And for Z to get that kind of deal in 3 years, maybe then he can get the really big bucks. And we're looking at, if Z has 3 very good years and he posts numbers that are going to be out of this world, then I would say, yeah, Trevor can get a contract of about 9 million AAV, or if he has spectacular seasons, then maybe 10 million AAV. So a lot riding on this contract for Trevor Zegras. And then the other contract that I kind of want to get in depth a little bit also, Jamie Drysdale. Drysdale is on a 3-year deal worth 6.9, nice, through the 3 seasons. That's only 2.3 million per season. Not what I was thinking, not what some were thinking. 2.3 per season is one of the most team-friendly deals that you could possibly get, especially considering the caliber of defenseman that you are getting. Now, keep in mind that Jamie Drysdale did not get an accumulated season last year. He played less than 10 games. So it is not an accumulated season, which means it is one more year of team control for Drysdale, which means that when his contract ends, he will still be a restricted free agent. And depending on how Drysdale does the next couple of seasons, that money amount could very much fluctuate for Drysdale. Again, worst case scenario, he gets injured a lot, doesn't do well, he might get the same amount the next contract. But if he does as well as we're hoping, keep in mind he has a lottery pick, if he does that well, then he could easily get money in the 4, 5, 6 range per season. So between Z and Jamie, that's an increase of about, let's say, on the low side, 3-4 million on the high side between the both of them. upwards of 8 to 9 million, which they could easily do because, again, salary cap is going up by about 9 million in 3 years. So there it is. There's your 8 to 9 million, and those two players would get 8 to 9 million more. As of right now, the Anaheim Ducks have $8.33 million in cap space. So they still have some money to play with. They still have a little bit of breathing room as far as they can possibly get someone else. They can possibly look at bolstering their defense and maybe get a couple more players that they might need, at least on a temporary basis, because there have been some injuries. And I'll talk more about those injuries tomorrow because they'll still be there. But it's not looking good already as far as players being out, especially if you're a San Diego Gulls fan. It really does not look good right now. So just a little word of caution there. Oh, by the way, Gulls Thursday, hoping to bring that back, not this week, but the following week. Hopefully Gulls Thursday will come back. So that's the goal as of right now. And a big injury involving San Diego could alter their roster. And once again, JD 2.3 per season, Z 5.7 per season, only 8 million between the two. I would have expected Trevor Zegras by himself to get over 8 million. To get both of them for 8 million, that is a bit of a surprise. And I mean, it's a pleasant surprise if you're a Ducks personnel person because you just saved yourself a lot of money. If you're a Ducks fan, you're relieved, but also you're a little bit worried because they're only 3-year deals. Will they come back at the end of 3 years? That's the $1 million question, folks. All right, we're going to head into the first intermission, and I'll talk more about what the contracts mean at large, and we'll also get into, you know, the past 3 games and the big picture from those 3 games, and we'll get to that on the other side. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Sleeper. It is a daily fantasy sports app, which is officially now the official daily fantasy partner of the Locked On NHL Network. So, you know, this is a really big deal. We have a daily fantasy partner. You know, check out Sleeper right now. You know, you could have Sleeper projections. I mean, you know, what projections are you going to see per night? Maybe you'll see Trevor Zegras scores a goal versus this team. If you have Ducks Coyotes later in the season, you can put a bet on Trevor Zegras scoring a goal against the Coyotes. Or if you're on the other side, if the Ducks play the Kings, I hate to say it, but you could probably almost guarantee that if Gibby's starting, Adrian Kempe is going to score because he always does that. So if you want to check it out now, check out Sleeper right now. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez, live at Acrisure Arena, home of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and also last weekend, home of the Anaheim Ducks, according to the 5,000 plus Ducks fans that were here last week. That was a fun preseason game. The last 3 games, not so much. But I want to kind of finish my thoughts on contract stuff because I think there's something big that we kind of have to talk about big picture wise. And that is with those 2 contracts, as I mentioned, the Ducks still have 8.3 million. The Ducks are probably, let's be like completely honest here. I'm going to take my glasses off because I got to be honest with you guys. The Ducks are probably not going to make the playoffs this season. It's probably going to be a 5th consecutive season where the Ducks miss the playoffs. The Pacific Division is pretty strong. Vegas is your defending champions. The Los Angeles Kings, they got better. They got a lot better. Edmonton still has a very good team with the best tandem in the league. The Seattle Kraken. The Kraken have even gotten better, folks, mind you. They got a goalie tandem of, you know, Philip Grubauer and Joy Decord, former Coachella Valley player. He's now their backup for the Kraken. So it's going to be a big question to see how the goalies do in Seattle, but they've also loaded up a bunch of guys. They're going to be strong as well. And don't count out the Calgary Flames. They still have some good firepower on their roster. They could still be a very good team. So watch out for the Flames as well. And the bottom 3, as you would have guessed, Vancouver, Anaheim, and especially San Jose. Those three teams very likely going to miss the playoffs. So because I'm coming at this from an honest standpoint, and I've always been supremely honest with the fans, especially in this podcast. I don't know what we can expect from the Ducks this season. The hope is that they can at least put up more of a fight and put up more of a competition and not give up a crap ton of shots. That is the hope. So because of that, I would say it's likely that the Ducks are going to be sellers. And if they are going to be sellers this season, which they probably could be, there's a few names on there that are probably going to be massive trade targets. Adam Henrique is going to be a big trade target. He still has a lot to give. I know he's 33, but I feel like he still has a lot to give for any team that wants him in a deep run. The only thing that might stop teams is that $5.8 million cap hit. And I think the Ducks would be willing to eat up half of that contract for the latter part of the season. So I think that'll be okay. Jakob Silfverberg is also a big question mark on how is he going to do this season? How is he going to play coming off of last season's surgery? He had been injured. Is Jakob Silfverberg back? So is he going to possibly get traded as well? Time will tell, but he's going to be a massive trade target as well. And someone else that's kind of a weird target, Max Jones. Now, Max Jones has had some, I would say, decently solid seasons, and Max Jones is still a player that a lot of teams would want, but he's a restricted free agent. I don't think anyone's going to pick Max Jones up. But I think the big two that are going to be trade targets are going to be Henrique and Silfverberg. And, of course, another big, well, I shouldn't say big trade target, Ilya Lyubushkin. Probably not a big trade target, especially with that $2.7 million cap hit. Might not happen. And then there's another kind of weird one that's on the last year of his contract, Isaac Lundestrom. He's going to be out for the majority of the season, so I don't think the Ducks are going to trade him. I don't think anyone's going to want him. And kind of a curious one. There's a couple guys that have 2 years left on their deals. Frank Vetrano, who I think the Ducks are going to keep, and Brock McGinn, who I think the Ducks are also going to keep for now. But still the big two, Henrique and Silfverberg. Those are your targets. And that's going to take off a lot of cap money. So if you subtract Henrique and Silfverberg, between the both of them, they're making $11 million between them both. So you could free up $11 million in cap space. Gets it up to 19.3 in cap space. The cap is expected to go up by about at least $4 million next season. So all of a sudden, they've got about $24 to $26 million in cap space at the beginning of next season or at the end of this season, potentially. That's a big number. And now the Ducks can focus on the free agent class of next season as well. So that's all something to keep in mind, something that Ducks fans need to watch out for. What the Ducks themselves should watch out for is the Los Angeles Kings. Now, I know I kind of playfully said, yeah, Adrian Kempe will probably score because he does that. Well, that was kind of a segue because guess what happened during the preseason game last week? Adrian Kempe scored. It was a nice goal. I'll give him that. Kempe always scores on John Gibson. I mean, what are we doing here? John Gibson, he's been playing probably hurt. I don't want to say hurt. I mean, he did leave the game the other night. I mean, he was kind of vomiting on the ice down in San Diego. Not a good sign. Really not a good sign. But Gibby played the entire game against the Los Angeles Kings. And also during that shootout, he didn't look that engaged. And I saw a plethora of fans saying, did Gibby actually want to be there during that shootout? I think nobody wanted to have that extra shootout at I can't believe it's not Staples Center Tuesday night. So that one was kind of a curious game in general. The Kings do look very good. They look like they've reloaded, and they're going to be a strong, strong team this year. And Kempe, of course, is going to be one of the main components of that firepower. But also, I got to say, Pierre-Luc Dubois, he's looked pretty good this preseason. Dubois looked good. Fiala's looked really good as well. The Kings, watch out for the Kings this season. They could make some big noise. And they showed it by the roster that they put out on Tuesday and the roster the Ducks put out on Tuesday. They just did not match up. Not at all. All right, I'll talk quickly after the second intermission about the last two preseason games, if there's any concerns from those last couple of games. And I'll talk about those after the second intermission. Stay locked in. And now a word from eBay Motors. So if you're looking to be on the right team, if you want to be that perfect fit for the team, be a team player, then head to eBay Motors right now because they have the exact parts that you need with their eBay guaranteed fit. So whether you drive, an older car or a newer car, eBay Motors has the parts that you need. Once again, with their guaranteed fit. So check out eBay Motors right now and be a part of a perfect team. Let's ride. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, or TLOPN. Once again here from Acrisure Arena, and the power's on for now, so we're going to keep pressing on. All right, so the last two preseason games that I'm just going to talk about briefly, they weren't fun, folks. They were not fun. I know it's preseason, but I still don't like when they lose to the Coyotes. I especially did not like Saturday's game. Thursday's game, not much better, in front of about 6,000 fans at the Ponda. That was a 4-2 game, and, the Ducks scoring in garbage time, not a good look. And especially that thrashing at TCC, Tucson Convention Center, where the Roadrunners play, also not a good look. The biggest concerns, obviously there's injury concern. Chase DeLeo's out from the Kings game, which I want to briefly mention. Chase DeLeo was the victim. I shouldn't use the word victim, but he was the recipient of an errant knee, which resulted in a suspension for the Kings. But Chase DeLeo, he took a knee and wound up with a lower body injury. DeLeo's going to be out for at least a couple of months. And that's big because he was projected to be the San Diego Gulls captain this season. And for the second consecutive year, Chase DeLeo is out with a major injury. So it's big for the Gulls. As far as the last couple of games against the Coyotes, the Ducks just didn't look like they were there. Now, granted, I only listened to Saturday's game, but I had a couple of my colleagues there from Locked On Coyotes. They pretty much said, one team showed up and the other one didn't. That's basically what it was, in their eyes. The Ducks just didn't show up. They came in, again, not my words. I heard disinterested. I heard they're just playing out the preseason. Whatever you want to call it. The last game was a 7-1 thrashing. Just a complete thrashing of the Ducks. So in the last three games, the Ducks got outscored 15-4, but again, preseason. So maybe the Ducks players really kind of went into this going we're just kind of riding this out without anyone else getting hurt and see where they go from there. The Coyotes did start Ingram the first game. Gibby did start that game at the Ponda and just did not look good. He didn't. And then the Saturday game at Tucson, that was Alex Stalock, and he looked even worse. again, a couple of colleagues that were out there. Stalock just didn't have it. He simply didn't have it. The Ducks actually had like some pretty decent players out there. The one player that a lot of Ducks fans were really cringing about was Lassie Thompson, who had 2 turnovers that directly resulted in 2 goals for the Coyotes on the first game, and another one that resulted in a Coyotes goal the following game. So Lassie Thompson just didn't have himself a good night, and that's a shame. Like all the guys had issues on that final game. It was nice to see Pavel Mintyukov score a goal, so that was kind of nice for the Ducks. And nice to see some of the rookies getting some decent minutes. But big picture, this is still a Ducks team that is looking to find itself and looking to right the ship after just having some defensive meltdowns last season. And we saw it in these 2 games. Part of it is the goaltending. Gibby hasn't looked the best. Stalock has not looked the best. I'm not going to be one that's going to armchair quarterback. Like, I'm not going to yeah. I can't say that Gibby was disinterested. Like, I'm not going to put that out there. What I can put out there is that there's got to be some concern. Is Gibby 100%? Stalock, where is he right now in his hockey career? I mean, he's at the latter end of his career. Can he put up 30 to 35 games this season? Time will tell on this one. All right. That's going to do it for this particular podcast. Once again, thank you all so much for listening. Thanks for watching. Once again, we're going to have another podcast tomorrow, and we're going to talk much more about the injuries that took place, the big picture on that, and how this roster is shaping up, because we got some roster moves that we've got to talk about as well. And one of them just went down as I recorded this, so I actually have to save it for the next podcast. So I'll talk about the roster move that just went down as I'm looking on my phone like, oh, roster move. Hey. So that'll come on the next podcast. And yeah, we'll go from there. As I mentioned this before, but podcasts are going to be a little bit sporadic right now just because of a multitude of reasons. The big one, in the middle of a move right now. So just bear with us. We're going to try to get back to regular podcasts as soon as I can, basically pretty much as soon as I'm settled in. We'll be back with our normal podcasts, and, I'll try to give it like my 1000% for those ones. I mean, hey, I'm here at Acrisure. I get to do PA here. How cool is that? All right. That's going to do it. Once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, ad-free on Amazon, also on YouTube, also on SiriusXM. Check us out there. You could follow me on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks, and you can email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez, saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.